world to see if your back was still aligned and your sheets were growing grass all on the corners of your bed.
Hello everybody, I'm your host, Evan Irwin. We got a lot to cover this week, so let's get right to it. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're in a new era of standard as Grand Prix Kyoto gave us the first top 8 of the new standard. And it was of course chock full of control decks, 6 out of the 8 in fact. And you know what they say about the Japanese seeing their control shadow on the first big standard event of the season. Yep, 6 more weeks of control builds infiltrating our standard queues. The most interesting deck in the winner's circle is Project X, which was on the scene before but had a few mana issues due to the whitey nature of Soul Warden. With the new Essence Warden, all was well in the land of dual land mana bases, and Crypt Champion combos ran amok all the way to the second spot, where it, like many other decks, was destroyed with Sulfur Elemental? Yes, folks, every year we get another surprise star from our middle set. Last year we couldn't shut up about Ghost Dad and its plagued Rusalka-ness, and here we are with a 3-2 uncounterable ass-kicker who takes Sultari priests over one knee and spanks them right proper. Yeah. 3 damage here, 3 damage there really adds up, particularly when you think of a long, boring control mirror. Remember how the scariest creature against a control deck was a first-turn Curd Ape off a stomping ground? Well, then that must mean the scariest thing in a control mirror must be an end-of-turn Sulfur Elemental. A 7-turn clock is a long time in control matchups, but it's still a 7-turn clock. Speaking of decks that make me want to staple my nuts to my chair, Mono Blue Control reared its ugly head again. You could basically call this Frosted Pickles, as it's Brian David Marshall's Pickles deck without that pesky green mana accelerant aspect. You've still got a whole grip worth of Brine Elementals and Vesuvan Shapeshifters, while I bet Willbender was monkeying with sudden death all the livelong day. In 6th and 7th, Lightning Angel Control is back, and she's not taking no for an answer. Except when she loses in the first round of a Grand Prix Top 8, which kinda sucks. Eking out the last spot is Gruul. What is it with random aggro archetypes making top 8s? When do they actually win? Recently, my duties here at Star City have included inputting all the top decks into the deck database. This means I see every PTQ winner and every big top 8 list. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen Affinity get this close, or Boros barely missing the mark. And the only aggro deck to do us proud since we took a long ride on Heezy Street is Gaia's Might Get There. So with a perfect Sieg set up, here we go. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a new idea, so don't jump me about who thought about it first. I heard from a reader online about the concept of Rada giving you free mana and something interesting to do with it. The card that got me excited about her was Psychotic Fury. This little-known common from Dissension gives you 4 damage from Rada, which is more than doubled when you add Brute Force to the mix. Boros Swiftblade, of course, doesn't even need Psychotic Fury. Brute Force then led to Might of Old Krosa. There was something here. I could feel it. Back when Brute Force was unveiled, I told you, quote, Brute Force just made Boros Swiftblade playable in Standard. Go ahead, throw together that deck you have in your head right now. You'd be surprised. Well, you know what? I was surprised, and it's been doing extremely well so far. Let's take a look at my current build. We'll start with the mana base. Now, first off, I've got a single Brushland and a single Gemstone Caverns. Now, the Brushland was added in because you need just a little bit more white, and your mana requirements are pretty extreme. You got 4 Gemstone Mine, 4 Capruzan Forest, 2 Sacred Foundry, 8 dual lands here. Now, look, I know dual lands are expensive. Don't get me wrong. I had to invest a ton of money, and I still don't have them all. But, you know, if you want to be competitive, or at least try to be competitive, you're going to need a set. So I can almost guarantee these guys are going to be in 10th edition, but we don't know that for sure right now. Moving on to the rest of the deck, our 1-drops starting up here with our Birds of Paradise, which are great, and I have actually won games by giant growthing my Birds of Paradise to kill them. It does happen, and you shouldn't be afraid of it. And of course you got your giant growths, you got your Might of Old Crosas, you've got your Brute Forces. Curdape's in here now. Originally there was Wild Cantor because he could be, or she, or whatever it is, could be Psychotic Furied. However, Curdape is just like the best one drop in the format. There's nothing that they're going to drop that's bigger than a 2/3 on turn 1. Watchwolf is here, and Watchwolf it's as good as 2 mana can get. It's a 3/3 for 2 mana. I mean, you want to argue with that? Rada, of course, is here, and I'll tell you, man, if you wanted to cut Rada from the deck, I would not. Well, I would obviously say I think it's a mistake, but at the same time, I can understand you doing so. However, free mana is free mana, so do not underestimate getting a free brute force and burning for 1, because you don't really care about your life total. This is a I'm going to kill you as fast as possible deck, so that's what Rada does. Boros Swiftblade, of course, is the scariest thing you could drop on turn 2. Of course, and the last additions here were Lightning Helix and Char. Sometimes you just need the burn. It's just required. You can't win through just beats, because they'll put walls, they'll get good blockers, they'll find better removal, and end of turn Char is still 4 damage and still kills a lot of things. Lightning Helix keeps you in the race against other aggro decks, and all your pumps keep you in the creature race. So basically you've seen the deck now, and lastly, let's take a look at the sideboard. Over here I've got 3 Sulfur Elementals, Seal of Fire. Stormbind is also out for the control decks, and it also has great synergy with Rada, who gives 2 free mana to use it with. There's Captain Tickles. Now Captain Tickles, he also comes in against the control decks, and naturalizes, of course, for all sorts of things. Now, after hours and hours of testing, this is what I got. Now let me warn you, this is a very die-by-the-sword type deck. You can kill people on turn 3 and turn 4, and you can also sputter out of gas. But there have been many tweaks to this deck to ensure that doesn't happen. Taking a step back, let's look at the evolution of the deck. Originally, this deck was 100% creatures, Pump Spell, Psychotic Fury, and lands. Now, as you can see, Psychotic Fury was the card and interaction that got me to build and buy the deck online in the first place, and it's not even here anymore. After trying out Fury, then the new Berserk, I came to the conclusion that most beatdown decks come to. Burn is just better. So in went Lightning Helix, and later Char. These give you the reach the deck lacked before, with the ability to sneak in enough damage against control decks and or clear blockers from opposing aggro builds. Of course, you shouldn't discount the raw power of Giant Growth and Brute Force. They are, for all intents and purposes, lightning bolts. When you have a Boros Swiftblade, they're much better than that. Might of Old Krosa gets downright unfair when you're swinging for 10 damage, you know what I'm saying? I've also included the Luxacian Gemstone Caverns. While it doesn't hit often, it does happen, and I've went first turn Watchwolf and or Boros Swiftblade many a time. I could go over the matchups, but the gist of the deck is this. 1 land hands are okay with Birds of Paradise, and do your best to beat them to death. I could go into the intricacies of playing the deck, but that leads me to my next segment.
Oh, you're she-man. They don't believe me.
What is the audience for the Magic Show? Am I writing for the Timmies, the Johnnies, or the Spikes? Would it shock you to know that I'm writing this show for Magic players? Yes, those geeky, nerdy guys and gals who love the intricacies and depth and fun and strategy and deck building and drafting and sealed are all welcome under the Magic Show banner. I've not tried to focus on one thing because I like to take a look at the big picture. Some have said that the Magic Show is an Entertainment Tonight-esque show about the goings-on of Magic players. I'm hip to that. In a perfect world, I'd love to have a daily show feel, where correspondents can report in from all over the country about their tournaments, their happenings, and their quirks. But until I get a staff and a much bigger budget, I suppose I'll be relying on my own ingenuity to get me through. And so far, it's done me pretty well, so I'll keep trying. When I took Wizards' What Magic Player Are You quiz, I came out to be a Johnny Spike. I like to win, and I like to deck build, and I also enjoy being a part of and fostering community. Did you know I was a community manager for another CCG for 2 years? Does this surprise you? I like for others to share in the joy I have from the things I'm interested in, and if this is the best way to do it, then that's what I'll do. From the fantastic response I received last week, which was both a quote how-to show and a thank you show, I think you guys get where I'm coming from. In the end, if you play Magic, I hope you get something out of the show. I try, anyway. Which leads us to the spike end of the spectrum.
If you having girl problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one. I got the rap patrol on the...
This week, our own Zach Hill spoke to his mass, spiky audience about the problems that arise when you're X1 and you face an X2 opponent who has no shot at the top 8. You see, in the world of tournament play, there are many different ways to look at this situation. If you are the X1 guy, you've been slugging it out round after round and you're a mere win away from top 8. Hours of your life have gone into this endeavor, so close to the top you can taste it. You sit down across from the X2 guy and you say, "Hey man, I'd really appreciate you giving me the win here. It would lock me in top 8. You've got no chance of making it with your record." But do you know the player sitting across from you? Zach has a few choice words about Mr. Ton Nguyen. First, he explains that Mr. Nguyen refused a prize split in the finals of a PTQ for London back in the days before plane tickets for first place. The other guy was going to London anyway and would give Ton all of his prizes for the opportunity. Ton then refused, won the match, got less prizes than if he scooped, and then didn't even go to the Pro Tour. Ooh, ouch, burn. But was it not his right? Let's continue before we get to that. So Zach is X and 1, and here's Mr. Nguyen, once again X and 2, and once again holding someone's fate in his hands. And he told Zach no. And then he beat Zach. And then there was much darkness and many kittens lost their lives. The end. So after this happened, we see the following from Zach. Quote, "To recap, Ton received fewer prizes than he would have received with a concession and cacked me out of a Pro Tour potentially for no reason. It was actually strictly worse for both players. He then decided to take it upon himself to, quote, go out of my way at every event I ever attend to ensure that Mr. Nguyen doesn't receive a single favor from anybody. He's free to call my bluff and see what happens." So, being Star City Games and all, our forums exploded. Was it self-righteous? Was it egotistical? Was the argument going to go in hilarious places? Can you imagine if Week 17 of the NFL operated in this fashion? There would be a total outrage. I know. Except, do we play Magic in stadiums? Because has John Finkel ever endorsed a thing? Has Flores?
Are you feeling a little bloated? Is it that time of the month? Remember, when you tap for red, grab a Tampax.
No, such things don't happen in our world. The fact is, we're a few shades brighter than professional darts, but a world away from the National Football League. Was his sense of entitlement really so abrasive? What about his cries of retribution? I believe every single spike in the room would have asked for the concession, and every single one would have been at least a little surprised if he or she had been turned down. When you're so close to the brass ring, when the person in front of you doesn't let you step on their back to reach it, well, you can get a little hurt sometimes. Now, on the other hand, you have Mr. Nguyen, who has all the right in the world to play. Matter of fact, many people lauded his decision to punish the X1 with the X2 hammer, and many reveled in the idea that Zach suffered at the hands of such a, quote, cack. What do you think?
I'm doing alright, getting good grades, the future's so bright, I gotta wear shades.
So Future Sight is coming, and over at MTG Salvation they just popped their spoiler cherry. Let's take a look at Sprout Swarm, the promo common for Future Sight. Holy crap, are you excited? Because I know I am. First, I am extremely happy to see that we see Ravnica mechanics coming back so soon. Not to mention 2 mechanics on the same card. Now this is something I can get behind. Oh wait, we're getting a report in from Jerome Remie. Yes, he hates it. Oh man, what a shock. Moving on, I would personally love to see more dredge cards. Replicate never really got a decent non-limited spell beyond Shattering Spree, and let's face it, Forecast kinda sucked. Were it not for that god-awfully annoying Martyr of Sands deck, it would have never seen serious play. I know there were a few Pride of the Clouds decks running around after Ravnica first debuted, but then Solar Flare came and took the T-Bird away. Also, as I mentioned, this is the first time we've ever seen two completely unique mechanics on the same card outside of an unset, which I think is absolutely brilliant. How about a flashback convoke spell? Or a Dredge Madness card? I can't wait to see how they mixed and matched our favorite mechanics from years past. Flashback and Echo? Transmute and Threshold? The skies are the limit, folks. Speaking of Ravnica Block, the latest idea tearing through the rumor community is the idea that the 3 missing rares from Guild Pack will show up. You see, in Ravnica Block, each guild got 4 rares, except the Orzhov, Izzet, and Gruul, who only got 3. Guess which turds they snuck in instead? Yeah, Nephilims for the win. Ugh. So with Future Sight, they are obviously not afraid to bring back Ravnica mechanics. So are they going to give us the final black, white, red, blue, and red, green rares? I've got my fingers crossed, but there's nothing we can do now but wait. And that's all the time I have for you today. Join me next time when we'll have a very special Magic show. My local play group, which includes Star City Games' own Chris Romeo, will be live and in person, throwing something together for our brave servicemen and women in Iraq. And I'm sure you don't want to miss that one. So until next time, this is Evan Irwin, tapping the cards so you don't have to.